Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse. This is a kind of a weird week, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So we are well over halfway through this Billboard year based off the frankly stupid way Billboard demarcates its timetable. And I gotta ask, are folks really that impressed with what we got in 2025? I sure as hell am not. This year's felt painfully slow, and outside of rare exceptions like so many songs from YKNIECE sticking around, it's also been pretty damn bad to boot for it. But what makes it worse is that I don't see the obvious rollout of anything to really shake things up in a good way, deliver something distinct or interesting. Good songs failing to get a lot of traction, bad songs somehow get more and stick around. So when we get a week that feels otherwise kind of normal, the overarching trends of the year make it hard to get that excited, even if you might want to. And part of the evidence of that comes in our top 10, where for another week, Luther by Kendrick Lamar and SZA has the number 1. And look, I like the song, it's generally good, and there are definitely cracks in its foundation as the radio is leveling off and it lost the top spot on streaming. But this feels like it's doing more on the associated names for crossover rather than the quality of the song itself. Continuing a metaphor from a colleague of mine, if GNX is Kendrick Lamar's Born in the USA, Luther is his Dancing in the Dark. But hey, it held over Die With a Smile by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars rather comfortably. Better sales, but the gap on radio and streaming is going to keep it at number 2. What has more of a shot to take the top spot is Ordinary by Alex Warren at number 3. It took the top spot on streaming, the radio push is there, and this is the sort of song that the radio is gonna keep around forever. I can imagine it's gonna get to the top and potentially stay there for a while. And it managed to muscle back Nokia by Drake to number 4, which lost streaming traction, and while it's making radio inroads, certainly not fast enough to get back close to the top. And it was enough to hold over a bar song Tipsy by Shabuzi at number 5, which is losing radio, but maintains just enough streaming to keep a margin over Pink Pony Club by Chappell Roan at number 6, which is painfully close behind on airplay, but just cannot keep up that streaming traction, even if the sales are in her favor. Then we got I'm the Problem by Morgan Wallen at number 7. Saw big streaming gains, but I think it might have reached its ceiling given that Nashville hasn't shifted for radio crossover outside of country yet, thank God for that. But it just nudged over a new debut in the top 10, I Ain't Coming Back by Morgan Wallen featuring Post Malone at number 8, where a favor is getting returned with big streaming and sales debut, although with I Had Some Help still in circulation, I don't know if it's going to have the same momentum until the album bomb hits proper. It was enough to push back Lose Control by Teddy Swims to number 9 though, although I'd chalk some of that up to streaming and radio losses. Folks might be finally getting rid of this, but like Beautiful Things by Benson Boone right behind it at number 10, which is also losing in all channels, really not fast enough. Now that naturally takes us to our losers and our dropouts, and it's hard to feel like there's that many in the latter group that'll wind up mattering down the line. Evil Jordan by Playboi Carti fell well short of any year-end list, and Que Pasaria by Raul Alejandro and Bad Bunny will likely be in the same straits. Speaking of Playboi Carti, when we get to our losers, Rather Lie with The Weeknd also isn't sticking at 60, alongside continued losers like Caramel by Sleep Token at 100, End of the World by Miley Cyrus at 88, and The Giver by Chappell Roan just not getting anywhere at 61. Yikes. Then we got The Expected Collapse for Friends Like That by John Morgan featuring Jason Aldean at 68. Never seemed to have that much momentum outside of Nashville. And a couple songs from Selena Gomez and Benny Blanco seeing losses like Hoyos Tristes with the Marias at 76, and Call Me When You Break Up with Gracie Abrams at 90. Finally, well, Gimme a Hug by Drake is now imploding at 86, and Chest Pain I Love by Malcolm Todd is mercifully getting choked back at 93. Thank the higher powers for small blessings, I guess. Now that takes us to our returns and gains, and given we have no returns this week, let's work our way through the limited games that seem to be kind of most overshadowed by the nauseating Blue Strips by Jessie Murph up big to 35. Guess who got all the streaming traction? But she's also the only new arrival to see that kind of growth, and while we got some welcome boosts for Weren't for the Wind by Ella Langley at 39 and Undressed by Somber at 57, it just doesn't feel like enough. The last couple gains are kind of tough to gauge. Hard Fought Hallelujah by Brandon Lake has stuck around and surged off the sales to 40, but it's tough to see where the traction is for Love Me Not by Raven Lene at 53, or Backseat Driver by Kane Brown at 73. Not really about to complain about either song, just noting it there. Now this takes us to a pretty healthy list of new arrivals, so alright, let's get this started with number 98, House Again by Hudson Westbrook.
I guess you were right, I should've left when you did. The house you made a home is now just a house again.
Another week, another relative unknown dude trying mainstream country with a song from months ago that already has a firm industry push in place. This guy is apparently signed to Warner Nashville through River House. And the song... man, there's a part of me that wants to get behind this, with the touches of country soul, with that reverbed lead guitar melody and the touches of organ around the gentle groove as Westbrook looks over his house post-breakup, and the house that used to be a home with her is now just a house again. It's not a bad sentiment, and the writing is decent enough in order to support it, but I don't know, there is something about the mood of this that just feels a little off to me. Maybe it's that major key melody that feels a little bit too traditional for its own good. Maybe it's how it's evoking the waltz cadence draws back some wistful memories of dancing with her, but doesn't really help sell the loneliness. But I think it might be Westbrook as a performer. He's got twang, but with the tighter multi-tracking, I'm not sure it augments his emotional delivery. So yeah, I'll call it good, but doesn't quite hit as strongly as I would hope. All I'll say. Number 96, Actin' Up by Tommy Richman.
Got you a flight, a couple that don't gas me up. And now you think the word is in your hands, you're acting up. Yeah, my bitch is bad as fuck, and I got you mad as fuck right now.
Someone needs to explain to me what the hell Tommy Richman's marketing plan is. He put out Coyote last year, and there were songs from it that could be pushed as singles, and while I understood his logic to keep the biggest hits off the album for artistic cohesion, instead of pushing anything from the album, we got a new single, and that's a really bad idea, because Actin' Up feels like the hip-hop swerve to try to recapture the street cred he barely had, and it's a total mess. For one, the production's a disaster. The piano around the rinky-dink steel drums that get suffocated by the trap beat and a lumbering bass that's clipping the mix, and that's more the weedy synths trying to cut in around it. That's what you get when you sample goddamn Soulja Boy, and it's barely supporting Tommy Richman leeching all the energy and flair off his delivery. You had a semi-unique stylism. Why the hell are you doing this bargain barrel SoundCloud era mix doing a Yo Gotti interpolation? Now when we get to the content, where this is a post-breakup kiss-off where he's trying to be happy with this new girl, but even she doesn't seem to be paying him as much attention as he'd like, the more sour, abrasive tone in the production could make sense, but there's barely any focus to the venom, and Tommy Richman's heart does not sound in it. You could have pushed Letterman, dude, not this dated flip that doesn't have the energy or refinement to land well. So yeah, not good. Big swing and a miss. Skip it. Number 95, Party For You by Charli XCX.
For you, I was hoping you would come through. I was hoping you would come through. It's true, it's true.
So I guess now Charli XCX has gotten big enough that songs from 2020 are gonna go randomly viral and show up on the charts? Not against it per se. The Hot 100 becomes more interesting with older Charli XCX, especially from the hyperpop era. But if we're getting a song from How I'm Feeling Now, I think I would have preferred I Finally Understand or Detonate or even Enemy. This track actually got first played live in 2017, and it kind of makes sense that folks circled back around to it. The reverb saturated auto-tuned yearning around A.G. Cook's glassy production as the bass thrums around that synth gloss. It hits the narrow line between the metallic minimalism and just how that final hook soars on the feeling of disconnected longing, amplified even further during the pandemic. Now, does the song hit as hard as it did at that time? Debatable, especially as her throwing a party to get someone to come over. That's the same arc Ted Mosby did in the second episode of How I Met Your Mother. But Charli XCX not getting any actual satisfaction if the person doesn't show up, it hits the emotional sweet spot effectively. So again, not my favorite from this era of Charli by a long shot, but still a pretty damn good song. It's aged rather well. I'll take it. Number 92, Whim, Whamiee by PLUTO and YKNIECE.
Catch a place out the way. That's off my tank, I'm tryna fuck bitchin' right now.
Okay, you're gonna have to follow me on this one. PLUTO is a rapper out of Atlanta who some have highlighted falls in the wake of Sexy Red, not exactly promising. Insert all the Sexy Red discourse and then take it away because her 15th minute feels close to being up, and who's actually signed to Motown of all places. YKNIECE is on a similar lane with a thicker southern drawl and a slightly sharper flow, and thus, look, I'm already not a Sexy Red fan because the technical shortcomings overpower any over-the-top swagger she might have. I'm not exactly thrilled by two wannabes who might have a bit more refinement but nothing more to say beyond the gunplay, the flexing, and the bog-standard sex references. And even then, the hook feels more stop and start and lacking the swagger that it thinks it has. And the Southern Fried production doesn't exactly help matters. The painfully shrill synths over Zaytoven's leaden beat that swamps out the mix against the cheap trap percussion, and the compression, especially around the vocals, only makes them sound creakier and more annoying. I'm not gonna deny it's somewhat catchy, even if I think the hook is proudly idiotic, but the lack of any greater polish beyond that really holds it back. Yeah, no. Can't recommend. Number 91, Forever to Me by Swindell.
And a grass stain to my knee. I might have gave her the diamond, but she gave forever to me.
The funny thing with me coming around to Swindell is less that I think he's gotten much better, so much as I can acknowledge the sporadic quality. He's not so much a singles artist as one that if the right circumstances come together, he can strike some gold. Now this is not that, but it's a bit better than I expected, as a pretty bog standard love and marriage song. The guitars are generally warm with some subtle pedal steel accents, the bass is more present than usual, and when the drums aren't programmed with more of those fizzy atmospherics, they're actually pretty supple and organic. But go beyond that, I mean, your stock bro country cliches, but Swindell is sensitive enough to not overplay the list-driven structure. Although focusing on the number of years spent growing up in certain states, that's an odd choice to talking about her, even if he's intending to juxtapose it with Forever, as well as the grass stain to my knee when he proposes. I mean, the choice of details don't exactly accentuate the romance, but still, inoffensive enough. Not exactly something I'm going to revisit. I'm not going to complain about it either. Number 87, Headphones On by Addison Rae.
Make me feel better. Every good thing comes my way. So I put my headphones on. Listen to my favorite song.
I think my big issue with Addison Rae is I don't really hear what makes her special outside of the celebrity. I said it with Diet Pepsi, give that song to anyone else and tidy up some of the tinny mastering and you'll wind up with more personality, especially when she's wrapped in that thick cushion of baby-voiced overdubs. Now, to her credit, Headphones On is considerably better, mostly courtesy of the swaggering bass and the throwback percussion, and it sounds closer to New Jack Swing of all things, as the waves of warbling synth, the bells, and the strings supplement the breathy overdubs and make it feel modern. It's kind of an interesting balance between something that's trying to sound gently breezy with some swing, balanced out with elegant poise, where the most obvious comparison now might be Janet Jackson doing a bit of trip hop in the mid-90s, and that certainly feels a bit more unique. But then we get to the lyrics, where she's talking about accepting the pain, just finding a way to put on makeup, have a cigarette, let your hair down, put your headphones on, just tunnel through it. And I wish I had a better feel for the stakes. She talks about her parents' divorce and being jealous of this new it girl, but around it are a lot of thin platitudes, and if you're trying to sell me on unique personality, not sure that helps. But anyway, that groove is pretty terrific, and in a very limited chic lane, Addison Rae did deliver, so yeah, really good song. I'll give her this one. Number 78, Steve's Lava Chicken by Jack Black.
As tasty as hell. Ooh, mamacita, now you're ringing the bell. Crispy and juicy, now you're having a stack. Ooh, super spicy, it's a lava attack.
Alright, confession time. I never got into Minecraft, either playing it or watching creators in that space. Came out at a time when I wasn't gaming a lot, I didn't have a lot of interest in sinking hundreds of hours into it, and while I'm very much aware of how huge it is, it certainly wasn't going to be enough for me to seek out the biggest branded family movie tie-in that looked mediocre at best. And thus out of that, and a meme that triggered so many theaters to be wrecked by audiences who should be banned from cinema until they can behave themselves, we got the newest Jack Black joke song, album, and look, it's barely even a song. It's Jack Black doing his goofy voice over a canned drum machine and synth bell with a single guitar flourish to finish it off. It's better suited as a jingle. Quite frankly, I'm shocked that Billboard let it chart at all, given that it's just over 30 seconds. Maybe they're counting the elongated version that's just over a minute long with more ad-libs and punchier drums, but either way, yeah, no. This is a reference pretending to be a joke in a silly voice. We don't have to dignify it. Number 72, Your Way Is Better by Forrest Frank.
My heart back together. I searched the world till my head hurt just to find out your ways better.
And speaking of things I don't want to dignify, the story behind this guy is somehow even worse. So y'all remember that execrable garbage song Sunday Best from Surfaces back in 2020? The sort of quasi-ironic forced smile mashed into pop trap that's one of the worst hits of the 2020s so far? Well, this guy's half of that duo, and in recent years he's become more known as a Christian rapper backed up by 10K Projects on a joint deal with Warner. Apparently Elliot Grange, son of the notorious industry executive Lucian Grange, is responsible for pushing this dude. If you want an idea of what Elliot Grange is back before, you see names like Artemis, Ice Spice, and Tekashi 69. In any case, Forrest Frank has pushed out a lot of albums since getting signed, with this as his self-produced lead single from his 8th studio album, and it caught fire on TikTok. And you know what, I'll give him a bit of credit. When he was singing against the spare piano chords about feeling lost and trying to find a way forward, wasn't my thing. I at least understood the appeal, and then the pianos got staccato alongside the trap percussion, and the flow got more choppy and nasal as he tries to sell that Jesus' way is better, and that any attempted reverence just evaporates, even as he tries to bring in the marching band snare and the strings and the underpowered gospel choir. And it's the delivery that kills me here. There's no humility. Forrest Frank's flat, snotty drawl can't sell sincerity or joy, even when he tries to go into the falsetto, so it comes across smug and self-serving with the most painfully weak key change I've heard in a long time. He said he searched the world till his head hurt. That doesn't feel much like a religious struggle so much as a minor adjustment to serve what you're already doing. I'm not gonna say it's the worst thing I've heard this year, but it just offends me on a base level. We can all do better than this. Let's move on. Number 71, Happened to Me by Russell Dickerson.
Don't even know she about to wreck someone, and boys, I'm in trouble now. Ain't even trying to get out. So come on, baby, take me down, 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 yeah.
So the buzz I was hearing around this song was mixed, to say the least. A lot of shrugs, but more than a few were saying that Russell Dickerson actually made something of quality. And that had me very skeptical, because I don't think I've covered a single song I've outright liked from him. And I can't say this reaches that tier either. The hook is in the grand tradition of swiping an interpolation from a much better song, that being Girls Just Want to Have Fun by Cyndi Lauper, but I could swear the verse melody keeps trying to evoke her song time after time, and it gets distracting when you consider otherwise how overblown this is, with the squealing guitar lead splashing against the flashy 80s synthesizers, the drum machines where it's all compressed into slurry, alongside the over-polished main vocal line. And man, this is a song that is crying out for a singer with more intensity and verve than Russell Dickerson. He's a lodestone dragging this down. And given that this is a track about getting swept up in the wake of this wild girl as she's trying to cut loose post-breakup and have him fall for her in the meantime, just not matching the energy is a total misstep. But then it clicked for me. This really wants to be Shut Up and Dance by Walk the Moon. And once I heard that comparison, nothing here remotely measures up to the groove and kinetic flair of one of the most infectious indie rock songs of the 2010s. Certainly not from Russell Dickerson of all people. So yeah, not as bad as he's been in the past, so I'm willing to call it an ambitious misfire than an outright failure, but it is still a misfire. All I'm saying. And finally, number 8, I Ain't Coming Back by Morgan Wallen featuring Post Malone.
I ain't Jesus, but the main one is that I ain't coming back. Oh no, no, I ain't coming back.
If only I could believe the title of this song, Morgan. But since the run-up of this new album is squatting across the Hot 100 with far more bad songs than good, might as well get the obvious cash grab, I mean collab returning the favor from I Had Some Help, where I still don't think there was enough made by how fast Universal pushed that to the #1 in every channel in order to prevent Not Like Us from being even more culturally dominant as well as on the Hot 100. But this also has a very different tone to it, keeping with the watery, reverb-saturated, synth-inflected country that honestly feels even goopier than usual, amidst the minor key driving groove with the echoing tones sounding damn near post-punk and the sodden melancholy around the acoustics. And you know what? It kind of fits for a relatively straightforward and direct breakup song, for neither guy is especially that good, and they're kind of leaning into the worst of it. They were told to go to hell, get out of town, so they got drunk, and unlike Jesus, they ain't coming back. Honestly, given how the metaphors are woven to feel a little bit larger than life throughout the song, I'd argue it's pretty effective. But I also can't help but feel there should be a little more to it. It nails the basics pretty well, but if you're gonna be awash in this mire, you should have a little bit more detail. Maybe one more swerve to flesh out the business around the relationship, or this business arrangement passing as a song. As a whole, it is probably one of the better singles Morgan Wallen's pushed this album cycle. Sadly, that ain't saying much. But that's our week. God, all over the damn place, and while the worst falls out easy, Your Way's Better by Forrest Frank takes the bottom spot, while Actin Up by Tommy Richman is enough of a big disappointment to get the dishonorable mention. The best is probably a little trickier. I think I'm gonna stick with pop for both, and you know, Party For You by Charli XCX, it could have snagged that top spot. I think I'm actually going to give it to Headphones On by Addison Rae. It's not a great song, and I'm still not convinced of Addison Rae as a pop star, but that groove is undeniable, and I can imagine the appeal of this sticking around. I'm on board, at least for now. Next week, tough to say. The charts might be in a bit of a holding pattern. We'll have to see. Hopefully my voice will sound a lot better. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.